In 2009, a non-profit emerged from Australia with the seemingly noble aim to challenge the objectification of women and girls in media. Led by Melinda Tankard-Rice, a self-described pro-life feminist with deep ties to conservative Christianity, Collective Shout quickly evolved from a critic of billboards to a problem in digital content regulation. By 2025, their reach had extended to platforms like Steam and itch.io, pressuring them to purge adult-themed games. But what began as a push against depictions of their alleged target grew into something broader, more ambiguous. Their definition of adult content swelled to encompass narratives exploring body image, emotional trauma, LGBTQ+ identity, mental health, and non-explicit thematic maturity. Games like Consume Me and Last Call, devoid of explicit material, were swept up in bans driven not by regulatory transparency, but financial coercion. Collective Shout's strategy relies not just on rhetoric, but infrastructure, targeting payment processors to indirectly silence creators through financial chokeholds. This method, which some call censorship by fiat, disproportionately silences already muffled voices. Horror titles, queer stories, and even empathy-driven social critiques have been branded unsuitable with little recourse or explanation. Though they present themselves as feminist advocates, the group's ideological hybrid, a fusion of radical feminism and conservative purity politics, creates confusion. Conservatives call them leftist, misled by their language, while progressives recoil from their moral absolutism. What emerges is a movement less interested in protection and more about control. Their history reveals a pattern, mischaracterizing titles like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Detroit Become Human, opposing abortion and surrogacy, and echoing religious moral panics. Journalist Anna Valens faced professional backlash after criticizing their tactics. Meanwhile, over 200,000 people signed petitions in protest, signaling widespread discomfort with Collective Shout's creeping influence. But this is more than a story about one group. It's a warning. When moral outrage becomes a tool of control, when financial systems are weaponized to dictate what art and expression can exist, we tread dangerous ground. The problem isn't just overreach, it's opacity, a lack of accountability, and the assumption that protecting must mean removing. History shows that censorship disguised as concern rarely stops at what's deemed obscene. It grows, it mutates, and it silences those already struggling to be heard. True protection empowers choice. It encourages dialogue. It understands that discomfort is not the same as danger. When we let the moral boundaries of a few define the expressive freedom of many, we risk building a culture not of care, but of control. And once that culture takes root, reclaiming creative freedom may no longer be a choice. I want to take a moment to stress an important point that threatens to derail organized resistance. Labeling Collective Shout as left or right misses the mark and actually strengthens their influence. Ideological labels shift the debate away from what the group is doing to who is supposedly behind it. Once framed as partisan, critics divide into camps instead of uniting against harmful tactics. It becomes a left versus right fight rather than a resistance to authoritarian censorship. Collective Shout exploits this binary confusion. Their mix of feminist rhetoric and conservative moralism allows them to appeal broadly and avoid scrutiny. By triggering ideological reflexes, they create chaos, making it harder to mount focused opposition. People argue over labels instead of actions. To resist effectively, we need to confront censorship on principle, not ideology. Moral control dressed in activism is still control, and its danger lies in how it silences dissent, not which side it's on. Before anyone dusts off the tired straw man argument that any criticism of collective shout must be a defense of the illegal, abusive content they initially targeted, let's cut that nonsense off right here. That line of reasoning isn't just incorrect, it's disingenuous. This isn't about defending depictions of abusive and criminally explicit material. That content should never have had a platform, and its removal isn't the issue. What is the issue, and the reason this pushback exists, is the group's deliberate overreach. Let me remind you, their campaign quickly escalated beyond illegal or abusive explicit content. It swept up games that don't contain those themes. Queer narratives, explorations of mental health, horror titles, and feminist storytelling were caught in the same net, simply for being tagged as NSFW or for exploring mature themes. This kind of mission creep is dangerous. Once you normalize vague moral criteria and censorship by fiat, you open the door to cultural control masquerading as protection. It's not just about removing illegal content. It's about silencing the legal, nuanced, and necessary stories that challenge norms and give voice to the marginalized. So no, resistance to collective shout-style tactics isn't about defending illegal, harmful material. It's about defending freedom from moral absolutism, ideological opacity, and the hollow pretense of safeguarding that punishes the harmless. Be vigilant, remain focused, and stay curious.